So, welcome back to The Outsider Edge. This is where we really try to pull out the most important, nuggets of knowledge from some really compelling sources. This season, we're carrying on with Dr. Revere's book, Self-Management. It's pretty transformative stuff. This is our 7th time diving into his work. And today, well, we're digging into something really foundational. It's called the General Framework of Self-Management. Think of it like the essential blueprint for actually making self-management work. Work effectively in the real world. It really challenges a lot of the old ways of thinking about organization and, well, control.
Absolutely. And what's really powerful about Revere's framework, I think, is how practical it is. It's operational. It systematically addresses those common worries people have, like self-management means chaos or no one's accountable. He builds clear structures right into it. It's so concrete, he even visualizes it with something he calls the self-management model canvas. It's kind of like a business model canvas. Maybe you've seen those.
Right, yeah.
But instead of mapping out a product or service, it's the blueprint for how your self-managed team or even the whole organization actually operates, section by section. Covers everything from the purpose right through to the guiding principles.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When people think about adopting self-management, there's often this big assumption, right, that you have to just flip a switch, overhaul the entire company all at once. Is that what Dr. Revere says? Is it all or nothing, or is there a different starting point?
No, not at all. That's actually a common myth he tackles head on. The self-management models that really succeed, they're almost always brought in, incrementally, bit by bit, both in terms of scope, like how widely you apply it, and also the specific practices you adopt. So choosing where to start, that initial choice, is absolutely fundamental for setting yourself up for success. You definitely don't have to change everything overnight.
That must be a huge relief for a lot of leaders, I bet. So what kind of starting points does he actually suggest? Are there specific types of groups or maybe projects that work best for that kind of gradual introduction?
Yeah, he lays out 6 pretty clear options. You can start really small, even with just an informal group, people who already interact a lot, even if they're not a formal team, or maybe a specific project team, the people actually working on that project.
Okay.
Then you can scale up a bit. A formal team or group within the company, maybe not a whole department, but, a specific unit.
Yeah.
Or you could go bigger. A whole department like HR, marketing, sales, whatever, even an entire business unit within a larger company. And yes, eventually the whole company itself. It works regardless of size, sector, industry, culture. It's really about finding that right initial space to experiment, to learn, to adapt.
And whichever area you land on, that specific area gets noted right there at the top of the self-management model canvas. Sets the whole context for everything else. All right, so once you've figured out where you're going to apply self-management, the next really big piece is defining its purpose. Now, Revere seems to take a pretty different approach here. He steers clear of the usual mission and vision statements. Why does he think those often just lead to confusion? And how is his idea of purpose more, practical, more grounded?
That's a really good point because it gets right to the core of Revere's focus on making this stuff work. He argues that those traditional mission and vision statements, they often just end up being these big abstract things, right?
Yeah.
Kind of disconnected from what people actually do day to day. For him, purpose is much more concrete. It's basically the answer to the question, why does my organization even exist? It's fundamentally about the contribution the organization makes, how it helps society by tackling real current market needs. I mean, if you're not actually satisfying a real market need, there's no genuine purpose there. And frankly, probably no lasting company either. The company's existence is sort of validated by the needs it fulfills.
So less about, lofty slogans and more about tangible impact. Okay. And he talks about 2 levels of purpose too, doesn't he? How do those layers work together, especially if you're only applying self-management to, say, one team inside a bigger company?
Exactly. So the first level is the purpose of the whole company. It's big contribution addressing that specific market need. Now, if you're applying self-management to just a smaller part, like a team, a project, a department, that area's purpose then becomes its direct contribution to the company's overall purpose. Revere actually has a graphic for this, showing how the company's reason for being connects to those market needs, and then how these internal areas, these self-managed pockets, feed into that bigger company goal. That contribution becomes their specific purpose. It's like a nested system, Everything lines up towards meeting that ultimate market need.
Right. That makes it super actionable for you, the listener. Dr. Revere gives you some key questions to think about here. If you're looking at the whole organization, you need to ask, what does this organization actually exist for? What is its contribution to society, to the market? What specific needs out there does it satisfy with its products or services? But if you're just focusing on one specific area, you also need to ask, what does this area exist for? What's its unique contribution to the organization's bigger purpose? What company needs does it satisfy so the whole company can serve the market better? And these purposes, once you've really thought them through and articulated them, they get written down clearly in the purpose of the area as contribution box on that canvas. Okay, now let's tackle that common fear. When people hear self-management, they often jump to thinking about chaos, no control, no order. How does Revere's framework push back against that idea, especially when it involves flattening hierarchies and spreading out power?
Yeah. Yeah, that fear is common. But it's really misguided based on Revere's work. It's a critical point he makes. These self-managed environments, when done right, actually become incredibly robust. They're synchronized, agile, efficient systems. See, self-management doesn't actually get rid of hierarchy or power or control or order. Those things are kind of inherent in how humans organize, right? They stick around in any group. What it does do is flatten the unnecessary layers of hierarchy. It changes the role of traditional bosses.
Yeah.
They often become more like facilitators or internal coaches for their teams. And it creates this polycentric system, multiple centers of power, leading to a kind of spontaneous order. How? By distributing power and control among all the members. The core idea, and it's a bit mind-bending at first, is that you go from having one boss to having, well, as many bosses as people you interact with.
Wow, okay.
It's really about distributed accountability, not getting rid of accountability altogether.
So it's not chaos, it's just a different kind of structure, a structure built on shared understanding and commitment, which I guess leads us to what Revere calls the rules of the game on the canvas. What are those key rules?
Precisely. Yeah, these rules of the game are laid out in 3 key sections, 3 quadrants on the canvas. And they're all about defining the shared commitment, what everyone involved signs up for. So first you've got the guiding principles. Revere puts forward his core set: consciousness, freedom, responsibility, commitment, and coherence. Now, organizations can tweak these, adapt them, but his provide a really solid, tested foundation.
Okay.
Second, there are the master practices. These include things like common knowledge, making sure information flows, alignment between individual purpose and the organization's purpose, and coordination of commitments, how people make and manage promises to each other.
Makes sense.
And third, the primary and essential attitudes. These are fundamental: trust, cooperation, and a commitment to continuous learning. It's really about intentionally building a collective culture, not just ticking off boxes on a rule list.
Right, building a framework where people feel empowered, but they're operating within a system that's clearly understood, everyone's accepted it, and everyone's committed to it. Okay, that leads us nicely into a really critical part of the framework. How do decisions actually get made? And how are conflicts resolved? What's a common mistake organizations make here, and what kind of alternatives does Revere point to?
Well, the trap is often thinking it's going to be one of 2 extremes, right? Either painfully slow consensus, where everyone has to agree on everything.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
Or just reverting back to the old top-down boss makes the call hierarchy. Lelou, who Revere often cites, calls what self-management offers a beautiful alternative. Everyone can give input, absolutely, but decisions don't get stuck in limbo forever. People have the freedom to act on opportunities, to make decisions, but, and this is key, they have to consider the input from others who are affected or have expertise.
So it's finding that balance, efficiency, but also inclusivity.
Okay.
What's one of the most powerful or common methods Dr. Revere talks about for decision-making in these environments?
One of the most widely used and I think really effective methods he highlights is the advice process. It sounds almost too simple, really. It has just 2 basic rules.
Sure.
First, anyone, literally anyone, can make any decision after seeking advice from everyone who will be significantly affected by it.
Okay.
And second, anyone can make any decision after seeking advice from people who have recognized expertise on that specific matter.
That does sound simple, maybe deceptively so. What's the sort of the genius behind it? Like, what stops someone from just asking for advice and then completely ignoring it? Are there checks and balances?
That's where the elegance comes in. It solves the whole distributed accountability puzzle quite neatly, because the responsibility for the decision, and crucially for its outcome, rests solely with the person making it. So you're not just asking for advice as a formality. You're genuinely incentivized to consider it carefully because you own the consequences, good or bad. As Lou puts it, the more important the decision, the wider the net you naturally cast for advice.
Hmm.
This process really empowers people. Decisions can be made quickly by those closest to the problem or the opportunity. Anyone can take initiative. And crucially, it avoids what some call the tyranny of the ego. One person can just block a good idea.
Right, the power to just say no.
Exactly. And it also avoids that problem of responsibility getting diluted when everyone kind of has to agree. Here, ownership is crystal clear. It forces you to value the counsel you receive because you carry the weight of the final choice.
That makes a lot of sense. Empowered ownership. Okay. Now, making decisions, even with advice, inevitably leads to disagreements sometimes, conflicts. What's a strong model for resolving conflicts that Revere points to, especially one that, again, empowers people to sort things out themselves first?
He often highlights the model used by the Morningstar Company. It's become quite influential. It's basically a 4-step process designed to keep resolution as close to the source as possible. Step 1. If there's a conflict or disagreement, the individuals involved must talk directly to each other first. No running to a manager, just sort it out peer-to-peer.
Okay, direct conversation first. What if that doesn't work?
Then step 2 kicks in. They seek out a trusted mediator, someone within the company that both parties have faith in. This person doesn't decide, they facilitate finding solutions together.
Mediator. Got it. And if that still doesn't resolve it?
Step 3. They convene an expert panel, usually about 3 to 10 people, typically colleagues from their area. This panel listens, asks questions, and helps facilitate reaching an agreement. Still focused on agreement, not imposing a decision.
A panel. Okay, feels like it's escalating appropriately. What's the final step if even the panel can't get them to agree?
Only then, as a last resort, does it escalate further. Step 4. The issue goes to the company president at Morningstar, that's Chris Rufer, and the president then has a few options. They can make a binding decision, or they might focus on facilitating further agreement, or they could even designate another person to make the final call.
So it's really a layered approach. It strongly prioritizes peer-to-peer resolution first, then mediation, then a panel facilitation, before finally escalating to a formal decision maker. Keeps accountability clear at each stage. And this whole system, the way decisions get made, like the advice process and this conflict resolution model, this all gets spelled out in the system of decision-making quadrant on the canvas.
Exactly. It has to be explicit, normative, meaning it sets the expected standard and clearly documented right there in the general framework. The aim is always to agree on how we will agree when we don't agree, and to do it without resorting to traditional hierarchical authority.
Okay. Now, the very last aspect Revere includes in this general framework is the facilitation of interactions. What does that mean in a self-managed setting? What does it look like?
Well, what's really interesting here is how roles shift again. Because you're reducing those layers of traditional management, individuals naturally gain more responsibility. This means they need to actually master certain principles, develop specific competencies, and learn particular conversational structures to effectively facilitate interactions and decision-making within the company among their peers.
So people need new skills.
Yes. Often, those who are traditional managers transform into more like internal coaches or facilitators for their teams or areas. It's a distinct skill set, facilitating collaboration and decision-making in a peer-to-peer way. And it often requires specific training. It's a critical capability.
And like the decision-making system, this approach to facilitating interactions also needs to be explicitly laid out in that corporate general framework document.
Absolutely. It's part of the how we work together agreement.
So let's pull this all together then. What's the big picture takeaway? All these pieces, the purpose, the principles, the practices, the decision systems, the facilitation. How do they come together in this general framework document? And why is having this document so vital?
The document itself, the general framework that includes all these elements we've talked about, is not just, a nice-to-have guideline. Revere is clear. It must be delivered to every single member of the self-managed area, whatever that area is, team, department, whole company. And it's not enough just to hand it out. It needs to be really understood, genuinely accepted, and actively committed to by every individual. That shared understanding and commitment is the structure. That's how you maintain order, not chaos, in a system with distributed power. It's the agreed-upon foundation that allows real autonomy to actually work within a reliable structure.
Okay, so just to recap for everyone listening, there are 6 fundamental things Dr. Revere says must be in this general framework document. First, the purpose, the why for the area, its contribution, clear and concise. Second, the self-management system, a general description of the approach you're taking and why. Third, the principles. Commitment to those core ideas like consciousness, freedom, responsibility, commitment, coherence, or your adapted versions.
That's right.
Fourth, the master practices. Commitment to things like common knowledge, aligning individual and organizational goals, and coordinating commitments effectively. Fifth, the primary attitudes. Commitment to building trust, fostering cooperation, and embracing continuous learning. And finally, sixth, the communication system, spelling out exactly how decisions get made, how conflicts are resolved, and how interactions are facilitated. Everyone needs to know, accept, and commit to these processes.
Precisely. It covers the whole operating system, essentially.
And Revere apparently points to real-world examples, like the Morningstar Company's Declaration of Principles as a concrete instance of this kind of framework. So maybe a final thought for you listening. Just imagine articulating these elements this clearly, even for a small team you're part of. Think about the clarity that could create, the shared understanding, the truly distributed responsibility. It's about consciously designing a robust system, not just, hoping self-management somehow magically works out.
It's intentional design. That's the key.
Well, thank you for joining us on The Outsider Edge as we explored Dr. Revere's general framework of self-management. We really hope you have a much clearer picture now of how self-management isn't about lack of structure, but about building really robust, efficient systems through clear purpose, shared principles, and these distributed ways of making decisions.
Yeah, if we zoom out for just a second, having this kind of well-defined general framework, it's not just about writing down rules, it's what genuinely makes true autonomy and that sense of collective responsibility possible. It really provides the essential scaffolding you need to move beyond those, frankly, outdated top-down structures and build something truly collaborative and dynamic.
Couldn't agree more. Now, next time on The Outsider Edge, we're going to continue exploring Dr. Revere's self-management model canvas. We'll be focusing specifically on the members of the self-managed area, who they are, their roles, responsibilities. It's another crucial piece of the puzzle, so you definitely won't want to miss that. Please join us next time for more insights right here on The Outsider Edge.